If you ask a finance director in Dubai to list their biggest operational costs, you'll probably hear about things like rent, salaries, maybe technology. But, there's this huge expense that almost never makes the list, even though it's eating away at performance every single day. So today, we're going to dig into that hidden cost and why rethinking stress isn't just a wellness issue. It's actually a critical business decision. So let me just ask you straight up, what's the biggest operational cost that your business isn't tracking right now? I mean, think about it. It's not on any spreadsheet, it won't show up on a P&L statement, but its effects are everywhere. Well, that hidden cost, it's workplace stress. And the reason it's hidden is because it's a master of disguise. It shows up as absenteeism, it lives in that gap between a team's potential and their actual output, and it's definitely there in the recruitment fees you have to pay when a fantastic employee finally says, "I've had enough," and walks out the door. Now, this isn't just a feeling or some vague wellness concept, right? This is a really measurable problem with very, very real financial consequences. Let's actually look at the numbers. Okay, to put this in a global context, check this out. The American Institute of Stress estimates that workplace stress costs U.S. businesses over $300 billion every single year. That number comes from lost productivity, from employee turnover, healthcare costs. It's just a staggering figure, but it really paints a picture of just how massive this issue is.
And if we bring it right back home here to the UAE, the situation is, well, it's even more intense. A Cigna healthcare study found that over 90% of employees here report feeling stressed, and guess what the primary cause is? Work. So here's the key takeaway. This isn't some fringe experience affecting a few people. For the vast, vast majority of Dubai's workforce, stress is the baseline. It's the norm.
A lot of the time when we talk about stress, we tend to focus on the obvious stuff, like people calling in sick. But the real cost, this invisible productivity tax, it's much, much harder to see. So we have the obvious cost, absenteeism. That's when someone just isn't at their desk. Simple. But the far more damaging and kind of sneaky cost is something called presenteeism. This is when people are physically at work, but they're not really there. They're checked out, they're just operating at a fraction of their capacity because of that chronic underlying stress. And this is how that cost just quietly multiplies. A stressed employee, they make slower decisions. They start to miss small but really crucial details. They're way less likely to jump into that creative, collaborative problem solving that really pushes a business forward. Instead, they just protect their energy by doing the absolute bare minimum. Now just imagine that effect scaled across your entire team. And eventually this invisible cost, it becomes very visible and very, very expensive. It shows up as employee turnover. In a competitive market like Dubai's, replacing a skilled person can cost anywhere from 50 to 200% of their yearly salary. Let's be honest, people don't just leave bad managers, they leave environments that demand more than they can sustainably give. Okay, so how do most companies respond to this? Well, the typical response is, it's reactive. Something breaks and they try to put a patch on it. But this whole approach has a really fundamental flaw. On the one hand, you have these reactive fixes, things like one-off wellness workshops or maybe a mental health week. These things only address the symptoms after they become visible. But the proactive approach, the one we champion at Pratimoksha, is all about sustained development. It's about actually building new skills and getting to the root conditions that cause burnout in the first place. See, the problem with those reactive measures is that they don't change anything fundamental. It's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a wound without actually cleaning it first. The underlying dynamic, that constant pressure combined with not enough recovery time, it just continues, and so the stress always, always comes back. And this is exactly why our entire philosophy here at Pratimoksha is built around a totally different approach. We teach proactive development, building the capacity for resilience from the inside out, session by session. So in our corporate programs at Pratimoksha, we see how this works in 3 stages. First, we use very specific practices to activate the body's natural recovery system. That's the parasympathetic nervous system, to physically move people out of that chronic fight or flight mode. Second, we develop practical real-world skills like breath awareness that they can use anytime, anywhere. And third, we create a collective ritual, which sends this incredibly powerful signal from the organization that recovery isn't just allowed, it's valued. Our founder, Lalitha Viswanath, built Pratimoksha on this very principle. As she often says, the goal isn't to make stress disappear. That's impossible in modern life, right? The goal is to develop a different relationship with stress, one where you can engage with pressure consciously instead of just being consumed by it. So, this requires a fundamental shift in how we look at this whole thing. This is not about adding a new wellness perk, it's about making a strategic investment in the single most important asset any company has: its people. And here is the most crucial point to take away: the cost of doing nothing is already being paid. It's being absorbed right now quietly in the form of lower performance, higher turnover, and just the slow, steady erosion of your team's collective ability to do great work. So the question I want to leave you with is this. You might not see stress as a line item on your budget, but can you see its effects on your bottom line? Because acknowledging that cost, that's the very first step to truly fixing it.